everybody. I'm Evie Roberts, and this is my podcast, Talking in the Dark. Welcome. The aim of this podcast is to raise awareness about blindness, visual impairment, and disability in general, in a happy and light-hearted way. For those of you that don't know, I am blind. I was born with a condition called bilateral anophthalmia. Try spelling that one. It basically means that when I was born, my eyes didn't develop properly, so I wear prosthetics instead. The goal of this podcast is to remove some of the stigma and stereotypes around disabilities, whilst also having fun at the same time. Each week, I will be interviewing people from all walks of life, including some with hidden or physical disabilities like mine, and getting to know a little bit more about them and the lives they lead. This week, I am very excited to tell you that I will be talking to Jodi from the Graeae Theatre Company. My name is Evie Roberts, and this is my podcast, Talking in the Dark. Welcome. Hi Jodi, how are you?
Hi Evie, I am great. How are you doing?
Oh, I'm so good, thank you. Well, thank you so much for coming on the podcast. It's such a pleasure to meet you. How's your day going so far?
I'm having a very good day. The sun is shining. I'm here at Graeae's HQ in London, and it's a beautiful sunny day here. It's a little bit warm outside, and after I'm speaking with you, I'm off to the theatre. So it's going to be a good day, I think.
Oh, nice. Yeah, I feel like when the sun's shining and it's a nice day, I don't know about you, but I always feel so much more motivated and so much more productive.
Absolutely. So I'm Australian, so I chase the sun.
Yeah.
There is something about when it comes out, it just everything changes from what you want to eat, what you want to do, your motivation. Suddenly you've got ideas that have been trapped away all winter, and you're like, oh, they are there somewhere in my brain. It has all sorts of benefits, the sun. So I'm very grateful. And yeah.
Yeah, definitely. I don't know what it is about the sun. It just has that sort of power. Now, I know that you are the creative learning director for Graeae Theatre Company. So, to begin with, can you tell me a bit about Graeae?
So Graeae is, I feel like I can say this, even though I work with Graeae, I do always like to talk about how incredible Graeae is, because I very much found, I guess, found a lot of myself by joining Graeae, and have had huge learning curves and huge opportunities, and absolutely love what I do. So talking about Graeae is actually one of my favourite things, and would far prefer to talk about Graeae than myself. So very comfortable in that space. So Graeae was set up in 1980 by the incredible Nabil Shaban, with Richard Tomlinson, and it was basically set up because there weren't opportunities for deaf and disabled artists to have a platform as actors, as directors, as writers. So it's one of those things of where you find the gap, you fill it, I suppose. And I kind of feel like Graeae has really grown over those, 44 years, but has always very much been, as well as a theatre company, it's very much a human rights organisation as well. I think I would find it impossible to work in theatre if there wasn't that human rights element and that kind of sense of social change. And every day at Graeae, I guess we're just trying to make the world a better place for deaf and disabled artists. And that spans quite a lot of areas as well. But essentially, we are a professional touring theatre company where we platform deaf and disabled and neuro-divergent artists. And we do that through productions, through writing showcases, training and learning opportunities. We deliver training for actors, but also the industry. And we basically are I guess, an organisation that for a little while was thinking, well, aren't we just supposed to be doing something temporarily so that the industry can get better, society gets more inclusive, and then there's no need for Graeae. But we've kind of got to the point where we're like, well, actually, I think there might always be that need for something like Graeae, if not Graeae. So it's got a very long history. I'm definitely perched on the shoulders of giants. I came to Graeae when we're in this beautiful, spacious, gorgeous building that deaf and disabled artists definitely deserve. But I wasn't part of Graeae when, I guess, we were in a small office in North London, or doing touring in the way that actors used to in the kind of, even in the 90s and early 2000s, where it's kind of roll up your sleeves and everyone mucks in, kind of very a lot of raw stuff, as well as that kind of real professional work being put out. But I think Graeae is always trying to change with what the needs are for disabled artists, for what theatre is presenting to us. Sometimes there's huge celebration, like in 2012, when I keep on thinking about that era when there was just deaf and disabled artists everywhere and doing amazing work, and there was festivals. And then there could be there's kind of ebbs and flows. And then there's times when, we're having to be much more political and forthright about upholding the rights of deaf and disabled artists. But every day is different, but also, incredibly, incredibly important, I think.
Yeah, absolutely. So, can you tell me a little bit about your role and what it entails?
I am really bad at describing what I do. So as the creative learning director, I guess oversee the training that Graeae delivers and plans. I'm part of that design process, and also the delivery. There's also a lot of work we do with children and young people. We have 3 young companies, from ages 6 to 25. We also do lots of kind of sector-based stuff, so working with the industry to ensure that they can be kind of robust in their access provision. And I also get to just work with some incredible artists every day. So I guess I very much see my role as a kind of supporting others to do, is the best way of saying it, and creating those inclusive environments, and also listening to artists and what they want, listening to young people and finding out what they want from Graeae, and making it happen. And working with an incredible team of access workers and British Sign Language interpreters, and incredible teachers as well. We do a lot of work in schools. I think I heard Matt Fraser talking about, inclusive education on your podcast recently. And it's absolutely true that I think there's so much work. I'm on a mission to get rid of the SEND label that gets thrown around, and that's segregation. So we kind of do a lot of campaigning within Graeae as well, and that becomes part of my role sometimes also. So yeah, it's hard to describe. If I see something that needs to happen, I try and make it happen. And I think most people here at Graeae are very much the same. We're not jobs worthy. If something needs to be done and it's for the betterment of deaf and disabled artists, we just roll up our sleeves and get it done.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that's so important. What would you say made you want to join Graeae?
So I was sitting in a hostel in Swiss Cottage when I first came to England in, oh gosh, I can't even remember, 2007. And I'd researched I had this dream that I'd fly from Melbourne to London and I'd get a job for 3 months, and then I'd probably get kicked out of the country after 3 months, or I wouldn't find a job, and then I'd go back to Australia. But what ended up happening was I was sat in my hostel in looking for jobs and came across Graeae and just saw this image on the website of deaf and disabled performers on a bendy sway pole, loads of meters up in the air flying. And I just thought, that is artistic brilliance. And it just happens to be by deaf and disabled artists. And it was just something I had never come across before. And so I made it my mission for, the next few years to just keep my eye on Graeae and make sure, if there was a job coming up, I would go for it. And when I did get a job at Graeae, I remember walking into this beautiful building where I am now, so light-filled, and everyone was friendly and welcoming. And Liz Carr was sat where I am now in the creative hub, in this glass meeting space in the middle of the building. Liz Carr was sat there, I think, doing a script reading with other deaf and disabled artists and actors. And I just automatically felt this sense of home and belonging and like I was always meant to be here. And that was like 15 years ago and I never left. So they're gonna have to push me out, I think. But yeah, do you know those feelings when you just go, oh, this is what it's about. This is where I need to be right now. And it was so clear for me. But I was so nervous for about 6 months, I think, just so nervous because it was my first time working for a professional theatre company, my first time in London. I, had to move all my stuff over and find a place to live. And I had to talk to adults. Like I even struggled talking to adults. I was 31 I was. And I just remember thinking, oh my gosh, I'm going to have to talk to adults. This is terrifying. Yeah, I still get like that. But yeah, I never forget that moment, Evie. Have you had moments like that where you just go, oh, yeah, this is where I'm meant to be?
I think I have probably had a couple at some point doing various things, and I do totally get what you mean. Sometimes you just get that sense of belonging and you're in the right place. But yeah, I can totally imagine that the nerves would have definitely been there
Yeah.
along with that. So kind of leading on from that then, what has your journey and experiences been like sort of within the arts industry?
Yeah, well, I mean, I can only really relate it to my work here in the UK. I think when I went to drama school in Australia, in Melbourne. I always wanted to be an actor, like many people. I was told I was really funny, and I'd play a really good witch, or I'd play a really good old woman with a limp, or I was very much typecast. And I always wanted to be a dramatic actor, but I don't think anyone believed me when I said that. I was always the funny girl. So I went and did drama school, and that I thought, okay, this is it now. I'm on my journey. And after that, went and performed in the Melbourne International Comedy Festival and did the Melbourne Fringe Festival. And again, I was, amongst other actors and comedians, and I thought, I've made it. And there's been so many of those moments through my life where I've gone, oh, this is it, I've made it. And then it's like, oh no, hang on a minute, there's some more work to do. And I don't even know what make it means. But yeah, I very much started out wanting to be an actor, and then something changed for me. I think my experiences of being part of maybe some kind of more community-based environments, doing theatre in Melbourne, where I didn't feel like I was part of an ensemble. I felt like I was, I didn't feel like I belonged to something. I felt like other people were taking the lead, and I was kind of just following. And I thought, actually, I don't want to be an actor anymore. I want to be with people. So I really changed tact and started looking at kind of more tutoring and teaching roles and getting into that side of things, but always within drama and music. And then it is when I arrived in London and started at Graeae that I've had a huge learning curve in terms of working in the arts and all the challenges it brings, but also the incredible celebration, that it also brings, and sense of self. But I know that was the right decision. I want to be with people, supporting other artists, and not being up the front and being on my own. And so I think my journey into the arts in a really professional way is all down to Graeae, and probably specifically Jenny Seeley, our artistic director, who she'll hate me for saying this, but is a huge role model to me, and has taught me a huge amount, along with other incredible members of Graeae. But that's within these walls is where I've had such incredible learning, and also kind of built my confidence as well. People find it hard to believe I am not a confident person, but I'm always terrified inside. And even coming on your podcast, Evie, I'm like, oh my gosh, I have to say all the right things, and I have to, be professional, and I can't swear. Don't swear, Jodi. These sorts of things. So, yeah, I think I've forgotten what your question is, Evie, but yeah, it's not been an easy journey into the arts, but also I think Graeae has made it easier for me.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I can totally imagine. Now, introduction to drama can often begin in sort of educational settings. Do you feel that drama teachers play a role in creating sort of inclusive practices for disabled children to pursue their creativity?
I mean, drama teachers are just gold dust. I personally have had my drama teachers are the ones that told me to keep going and follow your dreams and keep training, and they saw something in me that maybe others didn't. So drama teachers play a huge role. All teachers do. I think in terms of inclusive practice, I think drama teachers are some of the most, I guess, energized by being able to try things and do things differently, or the ways that they haven't done before. And I think those drama teachers, but also young people who are thinking about getting into the arts or getting into theatre. There is a huge responsibility there to be inclusive, because that needs to be the future. We're not there yet. And I feel like if you start with, young people and kind of saying, this is how it can be, you don't have to try and fit into what the industry is saying it is, or what theatre, is supposed to look like or feel like. Do it in your way. I think will have a huge power. So I think, when I hear from a drama teacher to say, look, we want you to come in and Graeae to come in and do a workshop with us and explore creative access and practice, it's such a lovely thing to receive. What's hard to receive is when, and it's usually not drama teachers, if I'm honest, but when you do get that, educator who contacts you saying, we're doing a play and it has disabled characters. Can you tell us how we can maybe, I guess, act disabled? Or how do we learn BSL in a day? Because one of the characters is deaf and we're getting one of our students to play that deaf character. It starts to become such a minefield of how to negotiate those conversations with teachers around representation, because I just think if you're doing it in school, then that is going to flow out into the industry and into real life and professional practice. So it's trying to be, be ethical and know about disability politics. I think drama teachers who know about social model and know that we're all coming from a place of what do we need rather than what's wrong with us, or what's different about us, but like actually how do we do this all together and make it accessible for everyone. I feel like drama teachers are really receptive to that. But I think when you start to think about higher education, I think it becomes more challenging from a Graeae perspective of challenging some of those ways of doing, because suddenly there's bureaucracy involved at a different level. So yeah.
Yeah, definitely. I think it's a tricky one, isn't it? When you think about that sort of, oh, we're doing a play and it's got a disabled character in it, because we need that representation for the disabled community. And in fact, this is something I've talked about a lot with my guests, actually. But we need that representation of the disabled community. But if we're going to have that representation, it really needs to be authentic, realistic. The people involved needs to be educated. It's not just something you can learn to do in a day.
No, exactly. And I mean, I don't know about you, Edie, but I find it, and that's because we live in this world and we have for a very long time, because this is our very being as disabled people. But I do find it hard that people think it's a new concept. You know, listening to a disabled person and taking on board their views, and even if you're not understanding the history and the politics, listen and learn from people. I do it every day. I'm always learning from people who don't have the same background as me or don't have the same lived experience as me. That's what makes us human beings. We want to be curious about each other, but also respectful. And I think when disabled people are shut down and told, well, that's a nice view, but we're not going to listen to it. I can't underestimate the kind of the depth of feeling that brings on, and the triggers that brings for disabled people who have been fighting for so long for representation, but also, just the basic human rights. So I just find it really hard when I meet people who haven't even considered it, because we all know a disabled person, surely. We're not living under rocks. Anyway.
Yeah, definitely. Well, kind of leading on from that then, I mean, drama and theatre, it has the power to evoke like real emotion and also educate an audience within its storytelling. Why do you think this is often kind of underutilized when it comes to the perspectives of the disabled community?
I guess it comes down to power imbalance, doesn't it? It's, I don't know if it's seen as easy as shutting us down. Yeah, I mean, it's a daily thing. I think it's informed by society. I don't know if you've come across Ellen Clifford's book, War and Disabled People, but she talks about, how the beginning, capitalism was the beginning of huge ableism, because with capitalism, it's all about making money, and it's all about being purposeful and being able to do a job in the way that they say we have to do a job. And more and more, I'm coming back to that and realizing that until we address those power imbalances, we are going to keep having these issues. So yeah, I wish disabled people were listened to more, and it could be seen as not just a story that, oh, that's an interesting story, your lived experience, write about that, and then we'll put it on stage, but then we'll never employ you again. And that happens quite a lot, where disabled people are encouraged to tell their stories, but then that's it. And not seeing us as full humans with all these other experiences. And this all comes down to attitudinal shifts. And this is what Graeae and so many other disabled professionals are doing every day, of trying to change the status quo. And sometimes it's exhausting, and you have to pass the baton to someone else for a week while you regain that energy and then go back to it again. But it would be lovely if, like, my perfect day would be, we focus on theatre and telling stories, and everything is accessible, and we're not having to fight against those power imbalances.
Yes, that would be brilliant, wouldn't it? That would be really, really great.
What's your perfect world, Evie? What are you thinking?
My perfect world. That's a very good question, and one that I've not even thought about before.
That's episode 2.
Yeah. It's like like Harry Potter and the Deathly Hallows, part 1 and part 2. My perfect world, I guess where disability is considered, my perfect world would be one where disabled people are treated as equals, where disability isn't seen as something inspirational, or on the other end of the scale, something that someone should pity, where disability and people who have disabilities are just seen as part of society and their abilities aren't doubted just because they may do things a little bit differently.
Love it. I'm on board for that world.
It'd be great. I'd love to live in that world. I really, really would.
And what's sad is that, you know, we say that's the perfect world, but that it's not utopian to think that way. It's absolutely possible. It's just there are some attitudes standing in the way of that. So we just need to chase them down.
Yeah, definitely. We'll get there eventually, I think.
We will.
But I think there's still a lot more that probably needs to be done before we do get to that point. So kind of discussing that then, what would you say are some of the barriers that disabled artists often encounter?
There's such a list, isn't there?
There is, yeah.
I mean, there is the attitudinal side of things, in a kind of more, thinking about the detail around that. It's also about not understanding people's lived experiences and what they need to communicate, and the choice that they need to have in deciding their support and deciding who supports them in moments where access provision is needed. I think, even thinking about theatre, we still struggle. We've got a young company. As I said, we've got 3 young companies, and one of them, they're the older ones. We've been waiting to go and see a show together, but we haven't been able to because not every we can't find a performance that's audio described, BSL interpreted and captioned, and wheelchair accessible and relaxed. And they're the access requirements of our group of 12 young people. And they can't go to the theatre together. They would have to go on separate nights or separate days. And Graeae, every show that Graeae does, we make sure has all those components. But not every show that Graeae does might be relevant for young people. So it's about finding who else can be. So we found one show that we're going to on Saturday by the wonderful Zuko, Perfect Show for Rachel, which has all the access covered so we can all go to the theatre together. But it is so, so rare to be able to do that. And I can't understand why people can't see that as an issue, that it's still optional to go, are we going to make our performance accessible? So in terms of, there's so many barriers I could mention, but one of them is actually just having that access to theatre, seeing work, being able to experience theatre. If it's not made accessible for you, how are you doing that other than through your own work? And being able to support peers and experience other work is so important to our own professional practice as well. So yeah, that's a huge thing, and something we bang on about at Graeae quite a lot.
Yeah, as you guys should do. I mean, yeah. I mean, I'm very happy for you guys that you're able to find a show that all of your young company can see together, and that's brilliant. But it should not be as hard as it is to find a show that you can all go to together. Like the fact that obviously these things are sometimes included in shows, but like you say, not all on the same night. And again, like you say, they don't have to go on separate nights. They don't want to do that.
No.
Like, they're all friends, they're all part of a team, and they want to go and see something that they love together. And I'm sure that that is the case for not just your young companies, but just normal friend groups as well, who may by some chance all have different disabilities and would enjoy theatre but couldn't go and see a show together because their access requirements are met. And like you say, the fact that this is still something that is optional, the fact that companies can still choose whether they want to do this or not, it honestly baffles me.
Yeah, exactly. It's just, I mean, I was on a train the other day, Evie. I was on a stag do, and I'd booked a train carriage with I use a mobility scooter when I'm outside, and I had booked a wheelchair space, and then I'd booked seats nearby for the rest of my friends to sit. And what ended up happening is they had to shift us onto the first class carriage because they couldn't open the carriage I'd booked. So they put us into first class, and then someone came over to us and said, you can't sit here. Only she, as in me, can sit here with one other person. The rest of you have to go to standard class. I said, no, we've booked a group ticket on a group saver. We have to sit together. And also, we're on a stag do, and we're all mates, and we'd like to sit together. And he was adamant that I would have to sit alone or with one other person on this carriage and be split up. And it's even that concept of, do you really realize disabled people have friends, right?
Yeah.
We want to travel, we want to move through the world together with our disabled and non-disabled friends. And what ends up happening when you're the only disabled person in a friendship group is that your friends start to see how difficult and all those kind of compromises you're making, or the negotiations you're making with the front of house staff about where to put your mobility scooter, or no, you can't come through here, or no, you're a fire risk. And these are the things that I think are the major things that trip people up. We're made to feel like we shouldn't be out and about. We're made to feel sometimes that our opinions don't matter, or that, oh, poor us, that, kind of inspiration that you were talking about before. It's all, if you turn up to a theatre and I'm on a mobility scooter, and suddenly you've got 3 people coming up to you saying, oh, and just panicking, go, okay, well, what should we do, and what do you need? And it's like, just relax, I'm with my friends, stop embarrassing me, like, just chill.
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah, it's
I'm
like,
an alien, come on.
exactly. It's like, okay, just chill out. We're cool. But it's
Yeah.
like, it's back to that thing you said earlier. We are allowed to have friends, and we do have friends.
Yes.
And we, funnily enough, like everyone else, want to hang out with said friends.
Yeah.
And it's like, back to that thing you said. I think that having, I think I have a really lovely friend group, and I do think that if you're friends with a disabled person and you're able-bodied and you happen to not know anyone else who has a disability, it teaches you a lot, I think, about the things that they have to go through that I don't know if people may have known beforehand if they hadn't known anyone else with a disability.
Yeah, exactly. And, those good mates that we have around us, they know how to, respond in the moment in that really chilled way that is kind of like not making you feel like you're a burden or that you're special, all those other horrible terms. So,
Yeah. Yes, absolutely. Now, it's often said that disabled artists have to work much harder to be seen as equals. What would you say are your views on this?
I mean, it's tricky, isn't it? Because you go, actually, it shouldn't be that way. But if I'm being honest with you, it's, from me personally, and I know a lot of other disabled artists, that's exactly how you feel. You have to be better than everyone else because you've got this extra barrier, whether that's in the perception of what other people perceive when looking at you, or what they perceive by listening to your voice, or how you might communicate. So I think it is something that I do say from time to time to early career artists. And I know it's problematic. It shouldn't be that way, that we do have to work harder. And I think disabled people aren't the only ones, only communities that have to do that, to have to fight to be seen and heard and taken seriously. But I think I can only speak for myself here, where if there's someone that says to me I can't do something, or it just makes me work harder. And I think that working harder doesn't mean working harder. It means sort of, I guess, just being aware that I'm going to have to, maybe train harder. Even to this day, there are people I know who, if they've got a workshop they need to go and run tomorrow, they've got it in their heads and they can just go off and run. They've planned it in their heads and they'll go off and do that workshop. I will plan for weeks for that one workshop. I will have plan A, B, C, D, E, and F all up my sleeve, ready to respond to the energy of the group, or maybe it goes in a different direction, and you need to change plans. Like, I overthink everything because I don't want to be caught out. I don't want to be seen as not being fully aware of what is happening, and I want to feel like I can be bold in that space. So I don't know if that's, for me, if that is related to, that's kind of a more internal thing, but it's definitely informed by my lived experience of being disabled. So I think, yeah, it's something that I wish we didn't have to, obviously, but yeah. What's your views on it? Do you?
Yes, I think that we do have to work much harder, and I think it's in all aspects of life. I know, like, whether that be just everything really, whether that be for me, so in school, I have to be, typing my notes really quickly so that I can keep up with what's going on in class. But on top of typing those notes, you're listening to what the teacher's saying because you don't want to miss out on valuable information whilst you're focused on your notes. That might be that I don't really feel relaxed walking between classes like I imagine that able-bodied people do, because I'm focused on not walking into anyone, not hitting anyone with my cane, what's going on around me, where I need to go. There are so many things going through my head that I don't think able-bodied people possibly have as much.
Yeah, it's even the planning, isn't it? Of like planning where you're going to go.
Mhm.
Planning a holiday now for me, I just think, oh, it's too much work because it's a lot. But even just planning your day, planning your route, all things that we do as a matter of course. But it takes energy away. It does. And this is the kind of stuff I'm telling other arts organizations. It's like, consider what has come before someone has arrived in your building or to your workshop or to your rehearsal. There's been so much planning potentially that's gone into just getting there, so much energy that has taken. So think about, when you might start the day, rather than at 10, start at 11. Think about the traffic that people might be encountering if you were to make it earlier, and how you can ease that. All those kind of things just to make it a bit, less onerous on us to feel like, oh, it's another thing we have to push through. So I think the more people can be aware of, and it's not about asking for pity or sympathy. We just want to acknowledge that there's been a lot that's gone into even getting into the classroom. And now we're having to focus on this, or now we're having to think about the next thing and how we're going to get there. It's all energy that takes up a lot of brain space.
Yeah, absolutely. So, what would you say then has been your proudest moment so far?
Such a hard question. I guess it's good because I've had lots of proud moments. I think the most recent one would probably be, I mean, I'm proud all the time of our young company and just what they come out with and the leadership that they show. I am incredibly proud whenever I see, Graeae kind of in positions where they can make change, where we can make change. I think there was a really incredible moment when we did a tour of Reasons to be Cheerful. And we had a wraparound program where we were inviting poets, musicians, anyone to write a protest song and then record it. And we would make it into an accessible music video with captions and audio description. And we would then choose some of the protest songs to then be put up be projected into the theatres as the audience are coming in and taking their seats just before the show. They'd watch this music video from, Joe out in Redditch, who had sent in a protest song. And we basically came up with this, that we've still got it on the website, I think, the Protest Song Hub. and we invite the artist to come along and experience other people experiencing their music and their poetry. And I loved the fusion of community and theatre. And that any time that happens is when I am at my happiest and my proudest. But nothing that all the proud moments that I can recall here at Graeae have nothing to do with me and have everything to do with other people and with teamwork and coming together. I think if I was left to do any of this on my own, nothing would get done. So it's just a shout out to everyone who is ever involved in those sorts of projects. It does take a team, and it's all worth it.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, I can imagine it. It definitely sounds like it. So let's look forward to the future then. What would you say are your aspirations and goals for the future?
For Graeae?
Yeah, or I mean, whatever you want.
I mean, I think I keep on coming back to lately this moment I call it a moment we had in 2012 when the Olympics and Paralympics were on. Jenny Seeley was co-directing the Paralympic opening ceremony. There were deaf and disabled artists who were part of that for the first time in Olympic history, Paralympic history. And just the streets were inclusive. Everyone was, it was diverse and inclusive, and we were all just getting on with it. And the ramps were being rolled out. We didn't have to book them in advance. Things were captioned, things were audio described, and then that kind of fell away as, I guess, the economy, whatever the government want to blame it on, and I think funding became, increasingly difficult as well. And if you haven't got that investment, then it does make everything so much harder. So I think if I'm thinking of the future, sorry, this is very long-winded, but I want to bring back that moment. And I don't want to live in the past. I don't want to go back to that moment, but I want a moment like it where it's full of, that other feeling is like Liberty Festival back in the day when it was at Trafalgar Square, or even South Bank, where it was just flooded with people. It wasn't that you didn't know everyone. You were finding new audiences and new people who wanted to be part of the community as an ally, and it was joyous. So I am looking forward to that moment again, and I don't know what it looks like, but I know what it feels like.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, that would be absolutely brilliant to kind of relive that at some point. Well, thank you so much for coming on the podcast. I mean, you are such an incredible person, and the work that you and Graeae as a whole do is honestly, I mean, so phenomenal, and I think definitely needed. I mean, I've really, really enjoyed talking to you, and it's been such a pleasure to meet you. So thank you so much.
Thank you, Evie. I've got a massive smile on my face, and I feel very honoured to have spoken to you. And it's just been incredible. Thank you.
Oh, thank you so much. And thank you to my audience for listening. And I will see you all next time.